We're ready for the next part of the operation now. We're going to check the pivots and see what condition they're in before we have a look to see what our bushings are like and if we need to replace any of them. Right, move that aside. We'll start off with T1, the first wheel on the time side, looking nice and shiny now that we've cleaned it. Now the best and most efficient way to check to see if your pivot is smooth or not, the best and most efficient way to do that is to use your thumbnail. Put our thumbnail at the end of the pivot and then just draw it across slowly. And if there's any indentations in the pivot, you'll pick them up very easily. Slowly drawing it across. That one's all right. We'll try the other end. Once again, thumbnail. Just to check, turn the wheel around a little bit and try it again. No, that one's all right. So I'll put that over there. We'll have a look at the next one. We'll do the same thing, thumbnail. Drag it along slowly. No, that seems to be all right. Pivot on the other end. No, those two seem to be all right. That was T2. Now we'll look at T3. Thumb again. Thumbnail. Drag it along. Oh, that's definitely got a groove in it. You can feel it and see it bouncing on the end. We'll try the other end. We'll do the other pivot. Oh, that's even worse. There's a real catch about there. All right. Well, we'll now find out how we're going to solve those couple of problems. And there's a different way of doing each one. We'll start off with the easy ones first. Always a good way to start. And what we're going to use here is a popsicle stick that's got 2000 grit sandpaper on it, wet and dry sandpaper. It's been glued to the popsicle stick, which has then been cut in half, and I've got a piece of masking tape to join the two together, and it acts as a hinge. So what we do is we put the two parts of the stick together and then put the pivot in between them, and holding it relatively tightly, spin the wheel around. Not particularly easy to do without a pin vise, but it will work the same. Then just continue turning it round. And when you've done that, have a look. You can see that that's quite shiny. Yeah, the other end's not too bad either, but I was going to show you how much difference there is between a polished and unpolished, but both the pivots seem to be alright. Alright, down to the other end now. The other pivot. And once again, line the pivot between the two halves of the popsicle stick. Spin it backwards and forwards. It only takes 10 to 15, maybe 20 seconds. You can have a look. Check it with your thumbnail. No, that's nice and smooth. Right, we'll put that one aside. Now we'll take up the second one. Align the popsicle stick correctly and spin the wheel in your hand. Backwards and forwards. It's not looking too bad. Now we'll do the other end. Not so easy to turn using the wheel as opposed to using the arbor, but it does the job all the same. It's looking nice and shiny. Right, that's the first two wheels. Alright, now we'll look at the problem wheel. Both these ends have got little grooves in them. I can even feel it with thumbnail with a glove on it. Alright, different story this time. Couple of sticks with 1200 grit, wet and dry on them. We'll use those two this time. Same thing. We align the sticks over the top of the pinion and then start turning the arbor around, holding the sticks relatively tightly together. Check it from time to time, see how you're going, because as you're doing this you're removing material from the pivot, so that's going to affect the size of the bush if we've got to rebush. If we have to redo a bushing for this pivot, the pivot's going to be slightly thinner. Keep spinning it round, maintain the pressure on the sticks. Check it again. Tiny little bit down, right down the end. So, where we'll place it. Just down the end. You can see we're not doing the entire pivot here, we're just doing down one end. Yep, that's got rid of the groove in it. This one's just the same. Right, set that up again. This time we'll do the full length of the pivot. Spin the wheel round, hold the sticks tightly, spin the wheel, take it off, check it again, still there down the end. To align the pivot into between the sticks again. Down towards the end, hold it firmly and spin the wheel. It's a slow, steady process, but it needs to be done slowly because you don't want to remove any material more than you have to off the pivot. There wasn't a lot of groove left there, but there was a little bit. It feels right. Final test, glove off again. Check with my thumbnail. Right, we're finished with those big sticks. Now back to our popsicle stick again and finish off the process. This is the 2000 grit. The other sticks were 1200. So same thing again. Hold a popsicle stick relatively tightly with the pivot in between and spin it round. Alright, let's test that, see how we go. It's quite smooth now. While we're here, there's a little bit of rust on the arbor there. We'll remove that while we're here, I think. Put the popsicle stick back on it. Hold it relatively tightly, spin it around. And that'll remove that little bit of rust that's there on the arbor. There we go, that's got rid of it. Alright, those wheels are ready now. I'll put that back into the back plate. Turn that round. There we've got the three wheels that we've just done. T1 at the front here, T2 down the bottom, and T3 over there, and of course T4, the escape wheel goes there in that pivot there. Here's another method of polishing pivots if you want to do it faster, and it's also a very good method to use if you've got really deep grooves in one of your pivots. We'll use our cordless drill as a makeshift lathe. First thing we'll do is we'll put the wheel into the drill chuck, wind it down, I've secured the drill to the desk so it doesn't move round. Little bit of movement there. I'll just see if I can adjust that a tiny little bit. See how it goes. That's not too bad. Same as before, we'll use our 1200 mesh sticks, put them over the pivot, align them so that they're square, hold them relatively tightly and press the trigger. Let it spin round. That's better. Bear in mind while you're doing this, because you're doing it so much faster, you're actually cutting away more material. It's feeling all right. I'll do a tiny little bit more on that. Align the sticks again. Squeeze the trigger. You don't want to hold the blocks too tightly. We don't want to remove too much material from the pivot. It's looking better, and you can see it's a lot shinier than it was. Now back to our 2000 grit popsicle stick again. Line it up on the pivot, then squeeze the trigger. Let it run round. Move it slowly out towards the end till it drops off the end. That is looking very good in actual fact. I'll loosen the chuck. We can then have a look at the pivot. You can see how shiny that is. Scratch it with our thumb. I'll take my glove off. I'll scratch it with my thumbnail. You can see my thumbnail rides very smoothly across the top of the surface. Very smooth. Well polished. We've got rid of the valleys that were on that pivot. Alright, that's another way to polish your pivots with tools that you've got at home. If you haven't got a lathe, you don't need very much speed on the drill. It just has to turn round slightly faster than using your hand, plus it's held in the right orientation and it doesn't move left and right, and it does a very good job, as we can see.